Welcome to the albums that saved us. Today we're talking about one of my favorite bands, Duran Duran. If you know me, it's no secret that I'm a fan of Duran Duran, and I've been a fan for a long time, since the early 80s. I don't want to date myself, but I've been a fan since the early days of Duran Duran. And they're probably arguably my favorite band. They got me into so many other bands. They were a band I really got into, early on, and they just exposed me to a lot of stuff. I loved their early stuff, and followed them, liked all the stuff they had coming out to a point. And so I think that when you become a true fan of a band, it's when you can criticize some of the stuff that they start putting out. It's not that you like automatically love all their stuff. And I think that's legit. And I think that's a legit fan, that you have the ability and the guts to criticize some of the stuff that a band puts out. There's other bands like that too that I'm the same way with. I used to love everything Duran put out. I used to love everything Depeche Mode put out, but you get to a point. So, at some point in their career, Duran Duran started to drift for me. I don't know if they lost me or if I lost them. Maybe I grew up. I don't know, but it took me a while to get there. Probably around the time of the Big Thing album, and after that, I think I started to drift a bit. I really loved everything, most everything, up through the Notorious album. And then Big Thing came along. It was good. I saw him on that tour. And then kind of after that, I kind of started to drift a bit. But I always kept an eye on them. They came and went. They had a comeback with what's called the Wedding album, with songs like Come Undone and Ordinary World. And at some point, I started a Duran Duran tribute band called Rio around the time of the Red Carpet Massacre album, which was, they've always had albums that have had a couple good tracks and singles here and there that I've liked, but they got to this point from Big Thing on, and even arguably with Notorious, where they would try these different styles, or they would try with What's Hot, and they got away from what were really considered the roots of Duran Duran. They had a couple of the early members came and went, and they kept just trying different things, different producers. Even Red Carpet Massacre arguably, had a lot of hip hop influence, and some of that didn't always work for them. And then they got together with this producer, Mark Ronson, did this album, All You Need Is Now, which was, to me, a great album. I think it was the best album they've done since Notorious. Mark Ronson was a fan. He really took them back to the roots, the way they did things, the way they recorded things. And I love that album. I got to see him a couple times on that tour, including a small show in LA at the Mayan, and actually got to talk to Mark Ronson outside and thanked him for, bringing my favorite band back. I hope he appreciated that. Since then, they've had a couple albums, Paper Gods, Future Past, which I've said they're good albums, but they're not good Duran Duran albums. I just haven't really liked the direction that they've gone. It's still a great live band, still great to see. I've seen them several times. It's been a while, but still definitely a band I keep my eye on. I had heard that they were going to do this album, this Danse Macabre album, and it was going to be some covers, some new stuff. We'll get into that. They've done covers before. Early on, they did a fantastic cover of Bowie's Fame. Later on, they did a great cover of Bowie's Boys Keep Swinging. They did a covers album called Thank You that was really iffy and destroyed by critics. A lot of fans didn't like it. Wasn't great, but they had some standout tracks on there. They did a cover of Lou Reed's Perfect Day, which Lou Reed said was the best cover of it that had been done. Another song on there, Drive By, cover of White Lines, which was interesting, but they still play that a lot live. So that's very interesting. In 2022, Halloween of 2022, they did this special show in Vegas. And Duran Duran's not known for varying much from the script. of the shows they do. Basically, if they tour, they're going to do the same set of whatever it is, 20 songs. So they did this special show in Vegas with costumes and a lot of stage design, and they did some covers and some medleys, and this really had a big influence on the band. And they wanted to do something that was fun and something that was kind of like a Halloween party. And then I think at some point, earlier this year, they got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Came out that original guitarist Andy Taylor had stage 4 cancer. And they kind of wanted to do a project where they got back with him and kind of gave him a chance to play Reconnect. So this Danse Macabre that came out in October of 2023 is their 16th studio album, and it's got a Halloween theme. I was kind of skeptical of this, and again, a covers album, and I saw kind of we're going to remake a couple songs, redo a couple songs, and I was very skeptical, probably based a lot on that Thank You album and some of those not so great cover versions. And then they got Andy Taylor back in. They got Warren Cuccurullo back in, who played with Duran after Andy left. And these guys are making their first appearances since 2004's Astronaut album and 2000's Pop Trash. And then Nile Rodgers are also on it. Victoria de Angelis from Måneskin, if that's how you say it. She's a great bass player. They're an interesting band. Again, they wanted to do this Halloween themed album that was based on some of the songs they played at that special Halloween show. And they released this song Danse Macabre with an interesting video. It's a very interesting Halloweeny show, but they did some covers. There's a Billie Eilish cover on there, Bury a Friend, cover by Cerrone or Cerrone, Supernature, version of Rolling Stones Paint It Black, Susie and the Banshees Spellbound, the Specials Ghost Town, and Talking Heads Psycho Killer. And then they reworked 3 older Duran songs, Night Boat, Secret October, and Love Voodoo. And then they did a super cool mashup called Super Lonely Freak, which is a mashup of their classic Lonely in Your Nightmare and Rick James's Super Freak. So this album actually got a really interesting reception. Critics liked it, and I gave it a listen, and it really, really, from the first listen, really, really grabbed me. I think it's, I think it's my album of the year. And frankly, I haven't listened to a ton of new albums this year. But if I had to pick an album of the year, it would probably be this. I think it's their best album since All You Need Is Now. It's very interesting, good feedback from the critics, but this is not their show. This is my show. This is the albums that saved us. So I'm going to go through some of these tracks and give you my opinion on them, especially as a huge, I don't know how many year, honestly, Duran Duran fan. So I like to think of myself as basically a Duran Duran expert. So the packaging of this album is very interesting. It's very Halloweeny, very even occultish themed. And the album has a poster insert that is a Ouija board. Scared some Duranis, thinking that it was, kind of a satanic approach. And this is coming from a band that, saying Dance into the Fire has many songs that mention fire, things like that. If you're into that whole thing, it's just a theme they were doing. No big deal. Calm down, all you Duranis. So the album opens with the classic Duran song Night Boat, which is a creepy song, super creepy video. If you're familiar with the band, one of the early on songs. And it is a really good rework of it. I really liked it. It's a good update. I was concerned these updates wouldn't be great either. Then they segue into a track called Black Moonlight, which is very current sounding Duran Duran. Again, it's not good or bad. It's a good song. It's not, to me, a great classic Duran Duran song. And this is interesting. They redid Love Voodoo. It's a great update. I think it's better than the original. And this is one that Warren played on. So I guess that he didn't play with him in the studio. He tracked it and recorded it and sent it. Next up, Supernature is another current sounding Duran song. Didn't really blow me away. Again, good song, not great. Danse Macabre is an interesting song, very Halloweeny. That's probably the best way to put it. It's catchy, and it's one that I liked right away. I don't love it, but it's definitely growing on me the more I listen to it. Secret October 31st is a remake of the great B-side from their Union of the Snakes single. It's a really cool update. Not sure it tops the original. It's different enough, though, to be really cool. And then they do a great cover of the Specials Ghost Town, which I think they did a really good job in. And that's the challenge with the cover. Do you want to do it like the original was done? Or do you want to do, you don't want to do it too differently. You kind of want to give it your own spin. And I think with most of the covers on here, they did it. And Ghost Town is one of the better covers. Paint It Black is an interesting interpretation of almost maybe a too classic Rolling Stones song. There's only so much you can do. They gave it a new spin, new syncopation. It's not my favorite, but it's one that maybe could definitely grow on me. I really liked, and I'm surprised I did. I really like that Super Lonely Freak. I think it's really good. It's a fun track. And again, it's that mashup of Lonely in Your Nightmare and Super Freak, and it transitions super well. I mean, the original bass of Lonely in Your Nightmare goes really well into Super Freak, and I'm pretty sure this is one of the ones they played live. And in there too is Bury a Friend, which is interesting. That's the Billie Eilish cover. I'm not super familiar with the original, so it's hard for me to judge this one, but it's all right. It's not one of the best on the album. Then there's Spellbound, which is the Susie and the Banshees cover. They do a good version of this. It's interesting, and it's a cool sound for Duran Duran, and it's basically like what if Duran Duran did a Susie and the Banshees song, but it's got kind of a darker feel. And then this is really a standout that's getting a lot of good notice is their cover of Psycho Killer with Victoria De Angelis from Måneskin. Måneskin. Sorry if I'm saying that incorrectly. They're an interesting band. And she's a really good bass player. And it's a good spin and it's tough. Again, you're doing an iconic song, but they made it enough their own that it's really catchy and has a really cool sound. The album closes out with a song called Confession in the Afterlife, which is okay. It's an interesting song, and that's what I'm going to say. It's okay. But for me, the standouts really are the rework of Night Boat, the rework of Love Voodoo. Danse Macabre is good. Secret October 31st is good. Ghost Town's good. Super Lonely Freak is great. Psycho Killer is great. And this is one I almost wish maybe they had done some of the darker, as you would say, Duran Duran songs and maybe done a whole covers album, and it's got those other tracks sprinkled in. Again, Danse Macabre is a new song. And I guess they used AI or something in the video, AI animation. And it's, another groundbreaking thing that they did. Looking at the list of artists that guest on here, Nile Rodgers, obviously, we talked about him. Victoria De Angelis again, Andy Taylor, Warren Cuccurullo's on here. Obviously, Simon Wilscroft on sax. He's, regularly plays with the band. Some backing vocalists, and I think Dom Brown plays on here as well. He's Duran's current guitar player, the touring guy. And they got to a point where, Warren Cuccurullo wound up being in the band much longer than Andy Taylor was. And then after that, after he left and Roger left, the drummer, they brought in a drummer, Sterling Campbell, which at the point they made a permanent member of the band, but he only stayed for one album and one tour. Great drummer, good album. It was the Liberty album, and I think he played on Big Thing and was on the Big Thing tour. I think at that point they kind of learned their lesson. Obviously, Warren was made a permanent member of the band. And then after that, they had a couple drummers come and go. They had a guitar player come and go. John Taylor left for a bit. Warren brought in a couple friends from Frank Zappa's band to tour with them on the Latex and Chrome tour. Great, interesting versions, more rocked up versions. And then Dom Brown's been in the band for quite a bit. And but they haven't made him a permanent member yet. And he's a very accomplished guitar player, but they've talked about maybe doing some more stuff with Andy, and Andy says he's open, but they did a benefit show for him for some treatment for his cancer. And I don't know if he's in remission, but I guess he's doing better. And he says he'd be open to doing some shows. So we'll have to see. That would be interesting. To sum it up, it's a good album, and I'm surprised they kind of went in the cover direction that they did again after Thank You didn't do so well. You know, a lot of critics and a lot of fans saw their Thank You cover album as a joke. This was a good album. It's fun. It doesn't pretend to be much more than it is. You know, it was a cool experimentation with them. Good covers, really good reworks of some of those original versions. So check it out. Danse Macabre. It is the Duran Duran Halloween concept album that is meant to kind of be about a crazy Halloween party and meant to be fun. This is something that they came up with. They wanted to do that special show on Halloween, and this really came out of that. And then they wanted to have the opportunity to bring Andy Taylor back in to the fold, and then also obviously Warren Cuccurullo's back in. So very interesting what they did. A little bit of a change of direction for them. Definitely worth a listen if you're a longtime fan. If you like some of the new stuff, give it a listen. Danse Macabre, the 16th album from the fantastic British band Duran Duran. Thanks for listening to Albums That Saved Us. We will see you soon.